Okay, I think we're good to go. If somebody can give me a thumbs up. Brilliant. Okay, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to this opportunity to hear about Council's future plans for waste minimisation. Appreciate you joining us. My name is Sophie Mander and I work for Queenstown Lakes District Council as a strategy planner for waste. And this webinar session tonight is to provide you with some background info to our waste issues and opportunities, and to let you know how you can have input into the process of developing a new waste plan for our district. Before we get stuck in, really appreciate if you would join me with a karakia to guide and support us during the presentation and discussion. So here we go. Manawa mai te mori nuku, manawa mai te mori rangi, ko te Māori kai ao, hei Māori tipua. Ka pakaru mai te pō, tau mai te Māori, homie, huie, taikie. Thank you. The purpose of this webinar tonight is to provide an overview of waste issues globally, in New Zealand, and more locally here in the Queenstown Lakes District. We will touch on some of the areas where we could do better, and we will describe what a council's waste management and minimisation plan, aka a WMMP, what it is and what its role is in achieving waste minimisation and management for the district. We'll give a short insight into progress since the last WMMP was developed, and we will consider the context and the framework for developing a new WMMP. But most importantly, we will be inviting you to participate in creating a new plan for waste for our district. You may ask questions at any stage during the presentation via the Q&A tool, and we will provide answers following the presentation. Answers will also be published in the Q&A. The chat tool has been disabled for this session so that it doesn't get confused with Q&A posts. We will also post some helpful links in the Q&A if referred to during the session. And this is a recorded session and so will be published on the QLDC Let's Talk page. And without further ado, I will now hand over to Lisa Eve from Eunomia Consulting, who is helping us develop a new WMMP and will be running through this presentation. Over to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Sophie. So us Kiwis are known for being really good at quite a few things. We're pretty good at rugby, we're pretty good at kayaking, and unfortunately, we're also pretty good at making lots of rubbish. Last year, we sent 3.6 million tonnes of waste to landfills like Victoria Flats, and this works out to just a bit over 600 kilos per person, and this is actually a bit of a reduction on the year before. This works out to one of the highest landfill rates amongst the 38 countries that are members of the OECD. And a recent review of recycling rates globally rated us at 29th place. Not quite the gold medal that we're looking for. Waste contributes 4.5% of New Zealand's greenhouse gas emissions, but 8.5% of our methane. And this is important because, as many of us will know, methane is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. In Queenstown Lakes itself, the amount and the type of waste generated is influenced strongly by a few aspects. The district has a very high number of visitors. This is equivalent to around an extra 10,000 people living in a district that has a permanent population of 53,000. And that permanent resident population is also increasing quickly. The district also has a really active construction sector. This is forecast to grow by around 7% over the next year, and this compares to the New Zealand average of 4%. We also know that the two main material types that are currently going to landfill, and this is actually similar to the rest of New Zealand, are timber and other organic wastes, things like food scraps, garden waste, and cardboard. This diagram shows all of the waste going into Victoria Flats landfill, with the biggest percentages to the top. Timber is around 25%, and then food scraps and green waste are around the same at 12–13%. These three material types together make up half of what is going to landfill. We also know where this waste is coming from. Around a third of it comes from the construction sector, and then commercial and industrial sources, and this is followed by 22% that is picked up through council's household curbside rubbish collection. A lot of this waste, nearly 70%, could actually be managed in other ways and doesn't need to go to landfill. For example, in many parts of the country, some of the timber can be separated and used for other purposes like biofuels, and food scraps and green waste can be composted. Paper and cardboard could be recycled. We also know what is being sent to landfill from the council's household curbside rubbish collection. The single biggest component is food scraps at 33%, followed by green waste at nearly 23%. Over 50% of the material in the red lid rubbish bins is organic waste. The food scraps and green waste could be composted. There is also still a lot of recycling in the rubbish bins. 8.5% could be recycled through existing services using the yellow mixed recycling bin and the blue glass recycling bin. In total, we've worked out nearly 65% of what's in the rubbish bins could have been composted or recycled instead of being sent to landfill. As you can see, there is a lot of recycling that is successfully diverted from landfill through the recycling collections, about 27% between the mixed recycling collection and the glass, but we could clearly be doing better. The Waste Management and Minimisation Plan, or the WMMP, as Sophie said, is a key document that can help to make sure some of these opportunities become reality. The WMMP has two main parts. Firstly, the strategic section, which should clearly show what the overall longer-term direction will be for waste management and minimisation in the district. Where do we want to get to in the future? The second part is the how we are going to get there, and is mainly comprised of an action plan that aims to implement all of these solutions for the problems we've got. There is also information on how the action plan will be funded and how progress will be monitored. It's important to note that the WMMP needs to cover all waste in the district, not just what council controls. And as we've seen earlier, the part of the waste stream that council has the most control over is just 22% that's picked up in the household curbside rubbish collection. The Waste Minimisation Act, which came in 2008, made it a requirement for councils to write a WMMP and sets out how these need to be developed. The first step in developing a new WMMP is the waste assessment. This is a long technical report that is completed at least once every 6 years and pulls together all of the information, facts and figures that we know about how waste is being managed in the district at the moment. Analysing this information enables us to spot the areas where things aren't being done as well as they could be, or areas where problems may start to appear in the future. This gives us a really good idea of what the problems or the issues are that the WMMP then needs to try and solve. The waste assessment also includes a review of the current WMMP, and in this case, it recommends that the Queenstown Lakes WMMP does need to be rewritten. Next in the process for Queenstown Lakes is an optional step, which is where we are right now at the green number 3. Council has decided that to write the best WMMP they can, the community needs to give input and views about what the overall direction should be before the plan even starts to be written. Once these early conversations with the community are completed, Council will have a better idea of what the action plan might look like. There are a number of ways to solve some of the problems, and having a clear strategic direction will help to identify the best solution for each problem that the district has. Since Queenstown Lakes' last WMMP was developed, lots of work has been completed. The curbside recycling collection has been improved to make sure that more of Queenstown Lakes glass can be recycled. A contestable fund has been established, the Waste Minimisation Community Fund. Council officers have advocated for many changes to be made at central government level, such as improvements to legislation, national plans, and product bans. A lot of this work has involved partners in the community, with community composting projects, work with Wastebusters, initiatives to make Queenstown Lakes single-use cup-free, construction waste projects with WOW, home composting with Dr. Compost, food rescue with Kiwi Harvest, and many more. So what will be the direction of the next WMMP, and what issues will be tackled? When we write a new WMMP, we don't start with a blank slate. There are a number of frameworks and principles that give us a starting point. The first of these is Te Rautakipara, the New Zealand Waste Strategy. This was completed after a lot of discussion and consultation with us in the waste sector and with the wider community, and was released in March of last year. This is the first time our national strategy has been reviewed since 2005. And unsurprisingly, it has quite a different direction from the previous one. Queenstown Lakes' next WMMP will need to reflect this direction. A key part of this national strategic direction is a drive towards a more circular economy for New Zealand. What does this mean for how we manage materials and waste? This means that we need to change from what is currently quite a linear management model. We take resources, we make them into things, we use them, and then our rubbish gets thrown into a landfill. In a circular management system, we try to manage materials in a circular way as much as possible. And what does end up going to landfill is viewed as leakage from the system and shows that our circular economy has failed somewhere. The way that the landfills work also has a big impact on how we choose to manage wastes and prioritise our actions. A lot of people think that landfills are kind of like a giant compost heap. Modern landfills are actually very different. They are lined and sealed and capped. And the operators of the landfills work really hard to make sure that there is as little oxygen inside the landfill as possible. This means that any organic material that goes into a landfill, like food scraps or cardboard, breaks down anaerobically without oxygen and creates methane. This methane is the main contribution that the waste sector makes to our national greenhouse gas emissions. Earlier, you saw that the waste sector contributes over 8% of New Zealand's methane emissions, and this is where it comes from. This is why many waste initiatives and the proposals in the second emissions reduction plan for New Zealand, which has just been out for consultation, focus on trying to get organic waste out of landfills. Finally, we need to try and always focus our efforts at the top of what we call the waste hierarchy wherever we can. If we can do this, generally we'll be causing less environmental harm and getting the best value out of our waste materials. It can be tempting to think that the solution is to recycle everything, and this is a circular economy solution, but it is even better if we can refuse to use something or reduce how much of it we use or reuse things over and over again. And disposal to landfill should be the absolute last resort. So finally, to let you know what will be happening next. The team from Council that we've been working with have held several workshops with different stakeholder groups over the last couple of weeks. This has included people from the construction and tourism sectors and also community groups. All of the input that we receive from these workshops will be fed into the WMMP development process. Firstly, focusing on the strategic direction for the new plan. This will enable us to then identify the preferred options for addressing the various issues and put together the action plan. Once the drafting of the plan has been completed, the full document will be released for full public consultation and another opportunity for feedback, probably in the first half of next year. So now we have time to answer some of your questions. As Sophie said at the beginning, if you can please submit these into the Q&A, and we'll get through as many of them now as we can. And I understand that if there's questions we don't have time to get to tonight, then we'll aim to follow up with some answers for those another time.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's see if we've got any questions coming through. Our back office team suggests there aren't any so far, but we'll give you a minute.
I must have answered everybody's burning questions.
Here we go.
Sophie, we've got one here that's just come through. Are there plans to introduce green bins to our district? I see so many people throwing garden waste into the red bins.
Yep. Thank you, Sarah, for that question. There are plans to introduce a curbside collection for food scraps and green waste. It's currently being consulted through the council's long-term plan with an implementation date of 26-27. So it's a little way off yet, but as Lisa shared with us earlier, about half of our red-lidded rubbish bins that sat on the curbsides are full of green waste and food scraps. So it would make a significant difference to the volume of material and the volume of emissions from our landfill if we collected that and composted that material.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sophie. Got another one here from Nikki, which is very similar. How could council encourage community composting?
Good question. Thanks, Nikki. We are currently involved in a project that is being co-funded through the council and the Ministry for the Environment, and it's a 3-year project to establish community composting hubs. We have one hub that's already been established in Glenorchy at the Headwaters Lodge. We've also got a hub that was established in Wanaka at the Outlet Camp. It's called Grow Wanaka. There's information about both of those projects available online, and hopefully Kath can put some links to those in the Q&A. And we're also underway with working with a couple of other groups who are really interested in setting up hubs number 3 and 4. They're all looking slightly different in the way that they operate. The one in Wanaka focuses on receiving food scraps and using that material to make great soil amendments, compost, and grow food on site, which is then shared with the community. Whereas the Glenorchy one focuses more on using that material on site to grow food and to nurture a local nursery for native plants. The next couple of hubs, one of them will be significantly focused on material that comes from our commercial sector, so the hospitality industry and accommodation providers. But you can find out more about that in some of the links and get tuned into that. Any more questions?
Fantastic. Thanks, Sophie. We have one from Tara. Can these slides be made available?
Yes, Tara, we're intending to put the slides into our Let's Talk Korero Mai webpage on the council website. So this presentation will be available for anybody to have a look at a later date.
And the recording, yeah?
Yep, correct. Thanks, Lisa. The whole recording and the slide deck.
We've got a couple more from Virginia. The first one being, is there future opportunity for composting material to be funneled into local community groups or charities like the Whakatipu Restoration Trust?
Our next hub number 3, is definitely looking at those opportunities, if not already providing some composted material to local initiatives. So yeah, that's a key focus for the next hub that is sort of currently in the early stages.
Cool. Her second question, working with McConnell Dowell, focusing on construction waste, our 2 biggest issues are for PE recycling and timber recycling. We want to do the right thing, but have unsuccessfully found no options in Queenstown or the wider area. Yeah,
that's a big challenge. And I suspect, given the volume of construction material that is going to Vic Flats landfill, will be a significant focus for us in our next WMMP. We do have a number of initiatives that we're supporting through the Better Building Working Group that are exploring opportunities, but there is definitely a lot of work to be done in that area.
Can I add to that as well,
Yes,
Sophie?
please do, Lisa.
So there's a number of the issues with managing construction waste are common throughout the entire country. We know that there are some parts of the country where there are facilities that will take your construction waste and sort it and recycle it, but these are relatively few and far between. And there's a number of national working groups that are looking at some of the issues like the ones that you mentioned. For example, trying to find ways that treated timber could be much more easily identified in a timber skip, so that we can at least remove that treated timber, and then it makes it much more easy to use the untreated timber for other purposes like biofuels or wood chip or wood pellets. And I know that PE is another material that they're looking at. I'm assuming that you're probably talking about material wraps, possibly also building wraps. Both of those are being looked at the national level at the moment as well.
There has been
Thanks,
an
Lisa.
initiative that was funded through the Contestable Fund to look at a reusable building material wrap. And I'm pretty sure that there's some info about that available on our website, so perhaps we can post a link to that as well.
Yeah, I was also just going to add, there's also some updated resources available on the Brands website. So they've got a whole lot of building and construction waste resources called REBRI, REBRI. Don't ask me to remember what that stands for. But they're currently working on updating a whole load of those, and they've released some new versions just recently. So if you haven't had a look at the Brands website and the REBRI resources recently, it might be worth doing that too.
Thank you both. I'll just add to that. I've just popped into the chat for Virginia the link to the Better Building Working Group as well, because for anybody that does want to collaborate on anything specific to C&D, that's a great place to start as a sector group, looking at tackling some of those issues locally. Just double check that we don't have any further questions. Doesn't look like we've had anything extra come through the questions at this point in time.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, one's just popped up.
Go for
From
it.
Sarah. Could compost hubs collect from drop-off sites in town? A few members of the public drop their compost into very small staff compost bins at the Wanaka Rec Centre.
At the moment, my understanding is the Grow Wanaka site and the potential new hub don't have plans to do any collections, but they do welcome drop-offs. But no, there isn't a plan to collect directly from CBD or other areas of Wanaka. Good idea, but no plans to do that yet.
Other than from commercial businesses where they're collecting from.
And that's limited to Queenstown at the moment, I believe. Maybe a little bit of that activity in Wanaka. We can get back to you with some more info if we can get anything more confident and clear on that one.
Absolutely.
All right, it's sounding pretty quiet out there for any more Q&A. So what I might do is just thank you all for your participation. Thank the back office team who've been pulling this together and supporting us tonight with moderating the Q's and A's, and really now invite you to get further involved in this process. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is to put on our Let's Talk Korero My page a sticky note platform, so where you can post your ideas and your thoughts, and we can collect more feedback and ideas before going through to drafting up this plan that will go to formal consultation next year. So look out for that on our webpage and on any of our QRDC Facebook posts. And I think that's about it from Lisa, I, and the team. So I will close us up with a short closing karakia, and we will get back to our evenings. So, ma te huru huru te manu ka rere. Let's set this free. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight. I look forward to your involvement in the future. Matawa.